estimation. Sampling is the process of selecting a small number of elements from a larger defined target group of elements, such that the information gathered from the small group will allow judgments to be made about the larger groups. And conclusions based on sample results may be attributed only to the population sample. Just a second. So what do we actually mean by sampling is that when we have to take a small subset from a larger group of population, because that is the subset that we can study. We cannot have a study on a very large population. So we take a small group from that in which we can do our study, and we can make a result. We can come with a conclusion that we can generalize in the entire population. So two things are very important, that that the sample which you have taken from the population, that is representative of the entire population. Okay, and the second thing is that it should be very representative, and then your results apply only to the population, the universal population from which you have taken the sampling. So as we go ahead in the class, it will give us more clarity that from which what actually we mean by this sample, what actually we mean by population, and how we go ahead with this sampling process. Now sampling, when we do sampling, very important thing that we have to keep in mind that there are certain norms of sampling. There are certain restrictions regarding population, regarding the sample size. These all have to be taken in mind by the researcher, and then he has to do the process to make sure that the process is scientifically sound. Okay. So see, this is what I meant. You have a target population, and in the target population, you have a sampling frame. So for example, if I want to do study in the youth of medical college students. So if I want to do a study on medical college students, if those are my target population, what will be my sampling frame? My sampling frame will be list of medical colleges where we have undergraduate MBBS education. So that will be our sampling frame from which we will pick up the sample, the sampling frame, that okay, so we will take first year MBBS, second year MBBS, or so on. So target population, if you see below, is the population of interest in which the researcher wants to generalize the results of study. Sampling frame is the part of accessible target population for study. The sample can be taken from accessible target population and not from the entire target population. So it's the sampling frame from which we select a smaller sample, actual units which are selected for the study. So suppose we say we have all the medical colleges, the sampling frame will be our second year medical college students, because second year is comparatively free at that time, and that will also be representative. So second year from all medical colleges, and from that we will take suppose 50 or 100 students or 75 students based on a sample size calculation from each year, from all second year in all medical colleges. So that will form a sample. If that is coming large, then we have to zone wise devise Delhi, that okay, we have north, south, east, and west Delhi. So out of these four, we select four medical colleges, second year students, 70 students from each medical college. So that will make the study non-biased, representative, and will help us generalize the results to the larger population group. Okay. Now population you want to generalize results to. This is the target population. Population you have access to for your study. This is the smaller section out of it. And then how can you get access to the study population? So you decide that okay, we have this much. This is our sampling frame. This middle one is the sampling frame. And then you have how can you get access to study population, and study actually done on a very small subset of the population actually. So we have two things: making statements about the population by examining sample results. So one is sample statistics and one is population parameters. So what we find out is actually the sample statistics, and then we make a inference or a generalization on how the population will behave. Okay. Why sampling? Sampling is important because it helps you deal with resource constraints of money, material, manpower, and time. It will give you faster and better results and will enable you to estimate the sampling error. So with the estimation of sampling error, you can actually say that, okay, this is the error made, so probably this can be the result. So statistically, and if you're following the correct scientific procedures, you can actually say with confidence, based on based on confidence intervals and your sampling error estimation, that okay, we are very confident that this result is actually significant and significant on a larger population. Okay, so that error, which a sampling error is actually, see, you are studying, for example, you are studying, don't just assume it to be ratio. Out of 100, such is the large is the population, you are studying on only 2 individuals. So that is the ratio can be vice versa. You have a population, entire India is there, and then you select around, suppose you select 500 or 1000 from each state. So that is your sample. So now when you estimate sampling error, you take into account that there can be some problem, there can be some error in making the judgment when we are restricting ourselves to such a small population or to such a small sample. So that sampling error adjusts for that bias, and then it will help you generate the finding. So this is also there. So if you're doing, so that this means that your sampling process is actually not leading to any error in the final conclusion. Okay, because you are estimating the sampling error also in the process. Gives results with known accuracy that can be calculated mathematically, and only when the population size is infinite we do sampling. Okay, so basically this is there that we do, but usually the population size in most of the cases is infinite in any scientific study. Disadvantages of sampling: may not be a proper representation of population. There can be a bias in sampling. It is usually there because, for example, if I do study in the second year, I say I'll select 50 students from Maulana Azad Medical College, and I say, okay, I'll be sitting in my room. Those interested in the study will come and give their interview in my room. So only those who volunteer, or those who are sincere students, or those who are committed to the subject or committed to the college will come and give me the interview. So there is a bias there. So I may not get a representative population of students, a representative sample of 50 students from second year MBBS. There might be some bias. Okay. Chance of overestimation or underestimation can be there. Sample survey is associated with both sampling and non-sampling error. So there can be a sampling error. The sampling error is what is bias, and there can be a non-sampling error, which is chance and statistics. That will always be there in a study. Fails to provide precise information in case of small segments containing a few individuals. So if there is a very small sample, then also your sampling is not correct and you will get false findings. May cause a feeling of discrimination among subjects who are not included in the study. So if I'm doing a study on some clinical procedure and I'm sitting in an OPD, I'm selecting samples. So I say, okay, this person is well educated, well literate, and he'll be able to comply with me. Or other way around, this person is illiterate, so he will not ask a lot of questions. Let me include this person in the study. So I'll be biased towards people who are not very well informed, who are illiterate. So that will definitely affect my study. Similarly, if the people are standing in a queue and I'm taking every third individual or every fifth individual, then the individuals who are not being selected in the study, they might have a concern that why is this happening? Why we are not being included in the study? So many such concerns arise when you actually practically implement a study on ground. So these are some field issues that emerge. Characteristics of good sampling design: it is truly representative, should have all the characteristics that are present in the population. Naturally, they should be representative, have a small sampling error, which you will calculate when you are doing sample size calculation, should be economically feasible. So there can be a problem when you calculate sample size. You can see that there are sometimes very large sample. The results come that you have to take a very large sample into your study, which is economically not feasible. We don't have time to cover so much sample size. So we say that, okay, now we have to restrict and we have to make modifications in the formula so that we have a smaller sample size in consideration. Results can be applied to universe in general with a reasonable level of confidence or reliability, and they should be of optimum size. So now when we come to sampling methods, we have two sampling methods. We have probability, non-probability, and we have mixed. So what do we mean by probability? Probability sampling method is nothing, but it means that all the study subjects at all points of time have equal chance of being selected in the study. Okay, so for example, we have simple random sampling. So simple random sampling means that you will be, we will talk in detail about it later. The probability sampling methods are the best sampling methods. They are more reliable, and they make these are strong sampling methods because and they are usually associated with less bias and lower sampling error. So probability sampling method types are simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, systematic sampling, and cluster sampling. Non-probability sampling is that you are not very sure. There is not all study subjects have equal chance of being included in the study. So there is some sort of bias or some sort of inclination of a researcher that who all we have to include. So for example, judgment sampling. So I say that it should be the perception of the faculty who is teaching that those students who are not performing well in the class should be included in the study. So now that becomes a judgment sampling. So I say, okay, this child is looking a bit casual. This child is not performing well. This child is more interested in extracurricular activities. So we should consider them for our study on seriousness in medical education. So then in that case, that becomes a judgment sampling. But how to do it in a probability mode? You can decide, okay, these are the criteria that the child who is scoring less than 50% in the internal will be selected for the study. So now you make a list of all the students who are scoring less than 50, and then you do a simple random sampling in that you will randomly select that out of this 50 or sample size, you will select 10. So 10 out of 50 will be randomly selected by simple random method, and those will be included. So then now this is completely unbiased, right? When you come into non-probability, there is a bias or a judgment of a researcher that comes into play for selection of study subjects. Okay. Then quota. So I say that those who come in a particular quota or those who are in army quota, I select only those. So you clearly have a bias towards one particular quota of students. Then you have convenience sampling. You say, okay, it is a convenience for the researcher. So those who are interested or those who volunteer for the study, I'll just be investigating them or just be including them in the study. So that will lead to volunteer bias. So this is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling today, nowadays we have Google Forms. So we send the Google Forms to everyone. Those who respond, we include. So obviously that is also a type of convenience sampling. And it is not a very sound method of doing the study. And then it is snowball sampling. What is snowball sampling? Snowball sampling is that the snowballs, they roll, and when they roll, they become bigger and bigger. So we start with one person. So mostly the snowball sampling is done for diseases which are very associated with some stigma and discrimination. So, for example, for HIV, we go to a transgender. We know there's a community, there are lots of transgenders, but we don't have, as a researcher, we don't have access to all transgenders. So we go and talk to 3, 4, and we say we take them into confidence, and we say now let's go ahead and explore the community, and you be our guide or you be our supporters, and we will, you'll be benefited in these particular ways. So you can help us with the study. So now those particular group will direct us to another groups, will help us penetrate into the community. From the next team, we will go in this way. So you follow a particular so you have those gatekeepers of the community who will help you penetrate the population, will help you will help you get more sample from that particular population. And similarly, like snowball, your population or your sample will grow. So you don't have a list of transgenders in the community with you. That is not possible, because no, these people are hidden in the community. They don't want to come out and expose themselves or interact with the outside people, or they don't want to share the details. So this is the way you can actually go ahead sampling them, and this is called a snowball sampling. So these are all non-probability sampling, and each non-probability sampling method, usually we use, there are two types of study. One is quantitative study and one is qualitative study. So when we talk about non-probability sampling, these non-probability sampling methods are usually mostly included in the qualitative studies. What are qualitative studies? Qualitative studies are those in which we go into depth exploring a particular reason, exploring a particular behavior. Like suppose why smokers don't quit tobacco. You can have a quantitative study, you can make a questionnaire, you can you can subject all the smokers to it. That will use a probability sampling technique. But suppose if I see that, okay, now I have to go for a qualitative study, I have to go in deep why it's a difficulty or a challenge for a smoker to quit. How can the health system overcome that challenge? What support the health system should provide to a smoker? And what is the most difficult thing for him? So then in that case, what do? Is we say, okay, now what we do is let me do a judgment sampling. And what judgment sampling I do? I say that I will take this person. I'm sitting in a quit clinic or in a quit helpline, and then I say people coming up with various problems of quitting tobacco. I pick up those problems which are very different. Okay, so I want to include a variety of difficulty in quitting into my study. So that variety or that divergent views or divergent opinion of people, that has to be captured. For that, I have used my judgment that this is the divergence. So suppose some say that I quit because I'm unable to quit because my wife or my girlfriend likes me smoking, for example. Or some say my best friend is smoking. So that is one category or one group which the reason which I want to look into that. Another says that I am so addicted that my workplace, I have so much stress. So for stress relieving, I need that. So one category is this. So there are different viewpoints or different reasons, and all the reasons, all variety of reasons I want to explore, so that we have a very good policy which fits all approach, and we have that policy for quitting tobacco, or we have that strategy that we build up on for making people quit tobacco. It includes and it will support a variety of people. So that is the qualitative study. So when you are going in for behavior, reasons, perceptions, one perception can be ki why youth is now increasing drug abuse. Drug abuse में youth में drug abuse to बढ़ रहा है. So you have to go into, you can make a probability, but non-probability or a qualitative study will be better in this case. So we have nowadays increasingly medical researchers are going into qualitative research also, but mostly it has been a domain of social scientists, okay, who are anthropologists, who deal with human behaviors, who deal with psychologies. So it has been a domain of there, but now even medical science is in medical researchers, or your I should say quantitative researchers are going into qualitative research. So you should know that you should know in detail both the sampling methods. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. But then definitely the non-probability sampling leads to a lot of bias in the study. And then we have lastly the mixed method study, which is multi-stage, multi-phase, and lot quality assurance. So we have talked in detail about this. Okay. Now, probability sampling methods, every unit is known probability of being selected based on concept of random selection, helps to ensure that sample is representative, and it is more time consuming and expensive. So simple random sampling technique whereby each sampling unit has equal probability of being selected. We define population, requires a sampling frame. So what are the requirements of a simple random sampling? That you have a defined population and it requires a sampling frame. Assign each unit a number. So you have so for example, I want to do simple random sampling in the entire medical college students of Maulana Azad Medical College. So I have list of all years, first year, second years, across all years, I have your list of students, and then I give you each number, and then you decide that, okay, based on what I have to study, this is the sample size. Now, if that sample size suppose comes out to be 100, I have to select 100 units at random from those 2000 or 3000 medical college students, the complete list of which I have in my hand. Okay. So when we go for simple random sampling, we can use the lottery method. Okay, so we can put all the 2000 and then we can pick up. Then we have a random number table. So random number table is there, and then it's in the statistics books. And then we have a software. Even your Microsoft Excel can generate random numbers. So random number generator softwares are there, and the most commonly used software is Excel, which can be used. So this is the lottery method. Okay, so you put in and then you take out the lottery. So your school admissions happen by lottery method. So that is random, so that there is no bias in that. So these are random number tables. Okay, and you can use random number table for generation, and there are softwares. This is the command that Excel uses, ran between so and so. So now such a random number will be generated, for example 50 or 100, whatever you need that. So you can give that command and then you can select. So there is completely no bias, no judgment of researcher involved here. Advantage: randomness offers advantage of being most representative. It is the only method of obtaining representativeness, allows use of inferential statistics. So now if you have used probability sampling, you can use inferential statistics. Inferential statistics is nothing but the use of tests of significance, in which we talk about measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion. So these are powerful tests, and then there are other powerful tests like you have chi-square test, t-test, you have ANOVA. So these statistics or these tests can be used only if you have a probability sampling method in your initial stages of study. Allows to estimate the magnitude of sampling error, easy method to use, equal and independent chance of selection to every element, and no need of prior information of population. Disadvantage: if sample size is large, this method is impractical and does not ensure proportionate representation. Yes, definitely. There can be a chance that if you are selecting randomly, you select only males. By chance, the system selects only males. Now you want, okay, I wanted a study in which the proportion of gender should be equal. So there should be male and female both in the study. But what should I do now? Because my random number table generator has given me the sample in which 80% there are males. But I wanted it to be 50 and 50%. That was for the rigor of the study. That was what we wanted to study. We wanted to have a gender perspective also. But now what should we do? So definitely it is not ensuring proportionate representation. Then systematic random sampling. So what is systematic? You follow a systematic way of selecting. So it's not completely random. It's systematic random. So we come down to a number, suppose 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th. So we will be selecting every 5th number, every 7th number. And this is what is called as the sampling interval. And how we decide sampling interval is the total sample size based on divided total sample available to us, or the total population, divided by the actual sample size. So what fraction of the frame the sample size represents, that is the sampling interval. And now the units are selected according to sampling interval. And the first unit is selected by random number, then every kth unit is selected. So first unit is selected by by randomly, and then after that, suppose we have n 100, and out of 100 we want 20. So your k comes out to be 5. So we select a random number from 1 to 5, we choose 4, and after that we take every 5th unit in our study, okay, till we achieve the sample size of 20. What are the advantages of systematic random sampling? It is suitable sampling frame, easy to identify. Sampling units are evenly present in the population, easy to select, cost effective. But disadvantage is each unit does not get equal chance and requires complete up-to-date sampling frame. So very good sampling frame, complete listed detail of every individual in the population should be there for you to go for this method of sampling. Then stratified random. Now stratified random, what do we mean? That we have strata, and in that strata we go for random sampling. So what is the advantage of stratified random? That each strata of individual is now represented in your sample, in the sample which you have selected randomly. You will have representation from every strata of population. Variant of simple random population, in which population is first divided into groups or strata. Through simple random sampling, individuals are selected from each strata. Preferred method when population is heterogeneous with respect to characteristics under the study, and ensures representation of different groups or strata in the study population. So stratified random sampling can be done by selecting individuals from different strata in certain fixed predetermined proportions. There are two types: proportional stratified sampling and disproportional stratified sampling. Not required at your end. You can just read that when we talk about proportional stratified sampling, it's a method of increasing the representativeness of variable in the sample. The number of subjects taken from each strata would be proportional to the number in the population. So this is called as population proportion to size. For example, we want to select population from urban, rural, and slum population, and we say the urban population is Delhi is 96%. We have rural population very less, 1%, and 3% we have slum population. Or sorry, I shouldn't say like that. Uh, exact proportion of slum population is not very clear. You can say it can be 5% or less. It's less than 10% probably. Whatever the situation, what I wanted to tell you is that you, based on the proportion of urban, rural, and slum, you decide the population, the sample that you are going to take from urban, rural, and slum area. So that in your final sample, you make sure that you have representation from urban, rural, and slum. You have make them three stratas, and their representation is based on the actual contribution in the entire population. Okay. It is more representative. All groups, however small, is represented. So even if the rural is 1%, it is still there in our final sample. Okay, only the representation of rural is there because rural is small. In the actual population also it is very less. So in the final sample also it will be very less, but it will be there. Okay. So relationship between two or more subgroups can be observed. It is greater accuracy, greater geographic concentration, higher statistical precision, and decreased sampling error and increased power. So it's a very good method of sampling, which is known population proportional to size sampling. So it's a proportional stratified random sampling. But it requires extensive knowledge about the population, and complete list of population is needed for each strata. Disproportionate stratified sampling is number of subjects in each strata is not proportional to the number of population. So it's not proportion, but you represent both the stratas, but it is not exactly proportion to the size. Okay. Cluster sampling, population is divided into subgroups of clusters. Usually it is done when we have to cover a very large geographical area. So systematic random sampling is taken of the subgroups, and then all members of clusters are selected and surveyed, used when population is large, heterogeneous, and clusters are formed by grouping units on the basis of the geographical location, and it is a very useful method for field epidemiological research. So you make clusters, okay? So one cluster is this is a very large area that you have to cover, and there are different communities living in a village. So you have one is a potter community, one is a community extensively involved in agriculture, one is the community which is involved in rearing animals. So you make clusters based on that, and then you do a study. So that is what is cluster sampling, usually done in large epidemiological studies. So there are different types of sampling methods that can be used in cluster sampling. सब क्लस्टर सेलेक्ट करना बहुत है, क्लस्टर बनाना में भी आपको एक सैम्पलिंग स्ट्रैटेजी यूज करनी है, क्लस्टर के अंदर लोगों को सेलेक्ट करने में भी आपको सैम्पलिंग स्ट्रैटेजी यूज करनी है. I'll be not be going into details of that. This is much more advanced for you, so I'll be skipping this, but just I want to give you an idea of multi-stage random sampling now. So now we have done probability sampling. We know what is simple random, we know stratified random, we know systematic random, and then we know cluster. So this sampling method comes as a long question to you. So you should just tell in few lines, why do you need sampling? 4-5 lines. Then you should tell about types of sampling, in which you should mention probability, non-probability, and mixed. How do we classify? What do we mean by probability, non-probability, and mixed? And then you should tell a paragraph on each type of sampling: simple, stratified, systematic, cluster. Similarly, for non-probability, we'll be doing in, when we go ahead in the class. And then you should give an example. So now that your long question is complete. So it's a very important topic from your exam point of view. And then there will be practicals on this, which senior residents will be taking in subsequent classes, which will make you the methods much more clear. Now, many times the question comes on multi-stage random sampling. What is multi-stage random sampling? It refers to sampling plans where the sampling is carried out in stages using smaller and smaller sampling units at each stage. So simple, I'll give you a simple example of this. If I have to do a study pan-India, I say, okay, I will first select regions, north, south, east, and west. From regions, I'm going to select states. From states, I'm going to select districts. From districts, I'm going to select rural and urban area. And from there, I'm going to select the municipality or panchayat, and then I'm going to select the population. So that is multi-stage random sampling, that from the larger, you're coming down to smaller and smaller units. So 4 regions, 1 state each. From 1 state, we come to 1 district each in each state. From 1 district, we come to 1 urban area and 1 rural area in each state. From 1 urban area to 1 municipality and 1 panchayat. So now you are using that to narrow down your selection. Okay. So see, district, block, PHC, then subcenter. This is also one example. And then from each subcenter, you are selecting 5 antenatal, 5 general, and 5 postnatal patients. Okay. This is an example of multi-stage random sampling. Then again, see India, Punjab, Kerala, Assam, 3 districts from each state, 3 500-bedded hospitals from each district, and selection of study subjects from that. Okay. I'll be skipping the cluster sampling in detail. What I have already told you is enough. You need not go into design effect, everything. That's slightly advanced. So now we are done with the probability sampling. We are done with the multi-stage sampling. Now we'll be coming to the non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling, the advantages, you don't need a complete sample frame. Some units do not have any chance of selection, cannot estimate the effect of sampling error. The sample is not representative, and you cannot generalize the results to the entire population. Limitation is target population is difficult to identify. Okay. Results would be used for the sample itself. It provides clues for further studies, how we can actually make a large study, or which policy we should have. And statistical inferences cannot be estimated. So unequal chance of each sample to be included. So you have researcher has a lens. He uses his own judgment to decide the sample. So this is what is non-random method. One is the convenience sampling, also known as the grab or availability sampling. Subjects are selected because it's easy to select them. People on street, friends, based on convenience. Okay. What are the advantages? It is good for a pilot study, for an exploratory study, or for testing a questionnaire. But the disadvantage is it is not representative of the entire population, and there is limit in your generalization and inference making. Snowball sampling, also known as network sampling. It is the sample for study of rare, hidden, or the problem which is, or the question which is limited to a small subgroup that is hard to reach. I gave you the example of HIV earlier in the class. It works like a referral chain. And initial subject, I hope I am audible, because yes, I was waiting for this. Okay, good. So it works like a chain referral. Initial subject helps identify people with a similar trait, study of the prevalence of HIV. Okay, we gave you that example. This is the snowball sampling. So researcher goes to 2 individuals, 1 male and 1 female. They tell you 3 more. The 3 more they tell you more. So your snowball, like snowball, your sample keeps growing. Advantage: it is to reach rare, difficult to access population. It is cheap and cost effective with lesser workforce. Is required. Disadvantage: it is little control over sampling technique. Representation definitely not guaranteed, and sampling bias due to people referring known people who are more likely to be similar. Okay. So now another non-probability sampling method is the purposive sampling. So what is purposive sampling? It is also known as judgmental sampling. So you have a purpose, or the researcher uses his or her judgment in the sample selection. Sample is approached having a prior purpose in mind. The criteria of the element who are to be included in the study is predefined. We don't include everyone who is available to us, rather those available are included who meet the defined criteria. So this is the sample. The researcher says, okay, I want to pick this because this is the reason behind that. So that is known as judgmental sampling. Advantage: hard to get population that can't be found through screening general population, used when limited number of individuals possess the trait of interest. Disadvantage: no way to evaluate the reliability, so it's actually completely on the discretion of expert, and sampling bias is definitely there since no randomization was used. Last, quota sampling. Population is divided into subgroups on the basis of relevant characteristics. A quota of sample unit is established for subgroup, and convenience sample is drawn from each subgroup until the required quota is met. So I say 50% male, 50% female, and I select out of that 2 males and 2 females. So we just use the gender criteria, and we have not followed the random method of sampling. Advantage: researcher budget is limited, introduces some element of stratification, ensure presence of every subgroup, but disadvantage: definitely non-representative, time consuming because you're making groups and then you're selecting, and the variability and bias definitely is there. What is multi-phase study now? Now, multi-phase study is the study that has been the sampling, multi-phase sampling. Now, multi-phase sampling means that you are doing sampling across various phases. And this is when studies are conducted in multiple phases. For example, cross-sectional study on nutrition may be carried out in phases. So phase 1, we have CAP study in all families. In that family, we select, okay, now we will select individuals who are who show a very poor nutritional intake. So sorry, I'll just say it again. Phase 1, we do a CAP study in all families. Once we do CAP study in all families, now we will say that, okay, we will select 10 under 5, 10 pregnant, 10 postnatal, 10 geriatric. So dietary assessment, we will do a complete detailed dietary assessment in this particular sample group. So now that this is the second phase of the study in which we have used a simple different sampling method. Now out of that, again, I will do anthropometric assessment in anthropometric assessment and biochemical investigations in a smaller sample. So out of 10 pregnancy and 10 postnatal, I will select 5 and 5 for anthropometric and biochemical investigation. Similarly, 5 under 5 and 5 geriatric. So now you are in different phases, you are using different sampling methods. There's one question by Lakshmi: what is the difference between quota sampling and stratified sampling? There is one very important difference. Quota sampling is a non-probability sampling. No method of randomization is used everywhere. Both quota and both stratified sampling aim for representation of all groups. They work on the basis of quota, but when you talk about stratified random sampling, you have a particular way of selection. There is a process of randomization, there is a process of probability that works behind sampling. But when you talk about quota sampling, it is just that you have 2 or 3 or 4 quotas, you have categories in which you are doing sample selection, and it is only on the discretion of expert that how many he is going to select from each quota. He can keep a random number. I want 5 male, 5 female. I want 10 people who are working in corporate, 10 who are working in public government hospitals. So that is a random criteria he can keep, but there is no proper randomization or probability process working behind it. Okay, I hope I'm clear on that. So now we have multi-phase sampling. So in all the phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of the study, you can use a different sampling. You can have a quantitative sampling, you can have a qualitative sampling, and similarly, it holds true for multi-stage sampling. So multi-stage and multi-phase sampling, that's why we have clubbed it under the mixed sampling method, because you can use either of the probability or a non-probability method in the sampling, but it should be scientifically sound. It should explain the phase or the stage of the disease, where stage of the sampling where you are doing. So it should add to the methodological rigor of the study. And then you should know what are the advantages and disadvantages of your study being done. Now the last slightly complicated sampling method, very commonly used in our epidemiological studies, is lot quality assurance sampling. The lot quality assurance sampling was initially done in industries, and it originated in the manufacturing industry for quality control purposes. Manufacturers were interested in determining whether a batch or lot of goods met the desired specification. The only outcome was acceptable or not acceptable. So lot quality assurance sampling, sample size, the number of units that are selected from each lot. This nobody is going to ask from you in exams at the undergraduate level, but you should know the name and some concept behind it. That's it. The only thing important is probability, non-probability, mixed multi-stage and multi-phase sampling methods. Okay. So the lot quality assurance sampling is the sample size is the number of units that are selected from each lot. The decision value is the number of defective items that need to be found before the lot is deemed unacceptable. So we'll say we will sample 50, and out of 50, there's a huge lot of medicines or vaccines coming. Out of each lot has around 1,000 vaccines. Out of 1,000, we are going to sample 50, and out of 50, even if 10 come out to be defective, we are going to reject the entire lot. Okay. So this is what works. What is the concept behind lot quality assurance sampling? Okay. So I'm not going to go into detail on this. Now we are coming on sample size estimation. You need to understand some very basic concepts behind sample size calculation. Nobody is going to ask you in detail about this, but just a basic concept that this is needed to produce confidence interval estimate with a specified margin of error, and to ensure that a test of hypothesis has a high probability of detecting a meaningful difference in the parameter. So we need sufficient number of participants for the study. It should not be very less, but it should not be very more, so that it leads to inconvenience of the researcher and is wasteful in terms of participant and investigator time or resources. So what it depends on? Sample size calculation depends on acceptable level of significance, power of study, expected effect size, underlying event rate in the population, and standard deviation in the population. Now, I assume that you people have not gone through this is biostatistics 2, and you are still not very comfortable with standard deviation, errors, and tests of significance. So probably I should skip this, because in biostatistics 3, you are going to have this class. And after biostatistics 3, you go to practical for the biostatistics 1 and biostatistics 2. And then we will come on to this. So for this, this is the last. So what will be the laid down criteria of how we'll be proceeding in the biostatistics class? क्लास 1 में आपको डेटा, मेजर्स ऑफ सेंट्रल टेंडेंसी, मेजर्स ऑफ डिस्पर्जन का इंट्रोडक्शन हो गया है. क्लास 2 में हमने आपको सैम्पलिंग से सेंसिटाइज कर दिया है. क्लास 3 में आपको हम we will introduce you to tests of significance and errors. So now after these 3 important classes, we expect you to have some practical, hands-on practical exercises, which will make you more confident of these terms. And once you actually practically solve some problems, you'll be more clearer on the concepts also. So now after this, The fourth class will focus on sample size calculation and will be a doubt clearing session. Okay, and then we will have a fifth class. The fifth class will have more detail on probability and normal distribution and calculation. So we will see how to take the fifth class, how to make the fifth class for you all. There are totally 5 classes dedicated to biostatistics. So I'll close the class now. Any query? What is the difference between stratified sampling and cluster sampling? Yes, stratified sampling, there are stratas. Cluster sampling, we have clusters with heterogeneous population, which are geographically isolated. So usually it is the distance that comes into role when we talk about cluster sampling. So for example, if we do a study in a resettlement colony, so I say the people are living according to religion. So one cluster or group of people who are living, they are together, they're living according to their occupation or religion. So suppose there's a Muslim colony. So I say that particular colony forms one cluster. Another, there is a group of people who are living together and they are all living around a temple. So they must be Hindu. So we take this as another cluster. So usually it can be called a strata, but when you call stratas are usually the concept behind it is not geographical. When we talk about cluster, it actually pertains to based on geography or the location, you are making clusters and then you are doing it. So it is basically that. And then strata is not only geography, strata can be many others. Strata can be occupation, strata can be religion, strata can be caste, strata can be based on smokers and non-smokers, strata can be based on your BMI. So you want obese, you want normal, and you want undernourished. So that also strata can be there. So strata can be anything. Okay. So cluster is basically predominantly, if you talk about cluster, it is your geographical location. Okay. So I've given you the schedule, okay? So the third class is going to be very important. This class was very important from exam point of view. So in exam, question on sampling, very clear. What is sampling? Why do you need sampling? What are the types of sampling? Both probability, non-probability and mixed. Write all the names and then advantages and disadvantages of each method, at least one advantage and one disadvantage. It's a very important long question that can come. Nobody is going to ask you on sample size calculation. Nobody is going to ask you on lot quality assurance sampling. So it's usually it comes on a broad general question, but it comes in your exams. Okay. So but we will cover sample size calculation. It is important for you to at least know the basic concepts, but it's too early to talk about it right now since you're not aware of the basic concepts also. Okay, so I'll be closing the session now. And any queries, if there are, you can ask me right now or you can mail me. Okay. Okay, so no queries. So I'll be closing the class. Thank you, everyone. Email ID with all of you. Okay. Okay, bye-bye. Hope to see you all very soon. Classes start. Take care.